Welcome! This video contains an introduction, an interview so you can gain deeper understanding of the subject from spirit level, and a group frequency calibration so you can start to clear the frequency distortion patterns around this topic. Enjoy!
Hi everyone, this is Karen Cheong, and I'm here with my co-host Dennis Kelly. We previously released an episode entitled Up Close and Personal, where I answered questions about my life and my experience of the world. After that episode dropped, I received a lot more questions that indicated it would be helpful to film another episode where we discuss how my experience and perspective have changed as I've continued to release more distortion patterns and my frequency vibration increases. After today's discussion, we're going to wrap it up with the group frequency calibration to help to begin to clear the distortion patterns around this topic. So let's get started. Dennis?
You know, the other day, Karen, we had fun with that session where we did kind of a up close and personal and kind of took a look inside your world. And I know you've gotten a lot of questions since then that we weren't, able to cover in the first one. So what I've got is a list of some additional questions.
Okay.
We're going to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is, what is your emotional state like? And then the second part of that is, do you still have emotions?
Yeah. So that question's a great one because a lot of people confuse neutrality with non-emotional. Okay, so because I talk about neutrality all the time as a state that we move towards as we complete ourselves and spiritually and internally and all that good stuff. And as we become more neutral, we become less dependent on external validation as a way to feel good about ourselves or worthy or loved, etc. So when I talk about neutrality, people often assume that it means non-emotional. So knowing me, I think you know that's not true.
And there's a few emotions still.
And if my husband Chris were here, he'd be laughing. So yes, of course, I still have emotions. What I would say is that my emotions tend to be more present time emotions. I used to, before I began frequency work, I used to project my emotion, meaning that I would be excited about things in the future or I'd worry about things in the future. So I wasn't very here in the present moment very often, experiencing whatever I was experiencing. I was always projected into the future time. Does that make sense? On something that hadn't happened yet. And I would actually worry a lot or get anxious or, like I said, get excited about something. And then whenever I got to the thing, I would kind of be disappointed because I was so excited about all these things. I built it up in my head and then I got there and I was like, because it wasn't what I was expecting it to be. So what I would say is my emotional state now is much more present time. It's not as, I'm much faster at catching when I go into what I would call a negative emotional state, or if I'm anxious or worried or whatnot, I'll actually notice that much more quickly than I used to. Before I just got sucked into the anxiety, the worry, the stress, and I was just in it. Now I don't get pulled into it so much. So I'm in it for just a few minutes and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? What's happening with the distortion patterns? What's happening with what's going on within me? Like what's happening? So where is the lesson? What can I learn from this? So that happens really quickly that you move out of it. So yes, of course, I experience emotions. They also can be very revealing. Like, oh, I still need to clear this. Oh, I'm noticing I'm getting triggered around this. So it's really helpful to have that so that you can learn. And I feel like emotions are great. And I would say that so what I've noticed is emotional range has changed. So meaning that as you become more neutral, it's sort of, the range is less extreme. Does that make sense? So it's less like super high excitement, super low depression. Does that make sense? It's much sort of more narrow, the range, and it's more clear in a way because it's much more grounded in the present moment. So when you do experience joy or happiness or excitement, it's very visceral because I'm experiencing it now as opposed to projecting it. So yeah, definitely have emotions.
Can I insert an observation?
Sure.
So one of the things I've noticed in the time that is that you don't get as attached to the emotion. Let's say, for example, if frustration or something like that comes up, it doesn't linger.
Right.
It doesn't paralyze you.
Yeah.
Oh, frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't enjoy that, but it's like it passes.
Yeah,
So,
it does. Yeah.
Okay.
It's really cool.
Here's
and you're talking about you notice this in yourself, you mean?
You're right.
Yeah.
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 Cool.
Yeah. So here's a good one. What state is your mind in right now? Is it empty? Is it passing thoughts? Is it kind of a state of bliss? What, at this moment.
We should ask Chris if the state of my mind is bliss. Yeah, I'm not making light of it. It's just that when you have a partner who knows you very well,
he gets all the states.
He gets all the states.
All 50 states.
Yeah, he gets all of it, right? All right. Yeah. So anyway, the state of my mind. The state of my mind is, first of all, much more still than it ever has been. Okay, which to me is such a liberation, because I used to have a mind that talked all the time, incessantly, loudly, in a very structured, commanding way. I had a very strong mind. Okay, that's how I was raised. My mind was there to help me succeed. That is the function of the mind. Okay, so, and also the thing that my father raised me towards is always to anticipate, to see clearly and anticipate what might happen. So again, that's a future-paced thing. Does that make sense? Because you're always ready.
Be ready.
Be ready. Yeah. So he taught me that. So part of what has happened is I've unlearned that, if that makes sense. So meaning my mind is much, much, much more still, which I'm extraordinarily grateful for. That in itself is worth the whole thing. Does my mind chatter still? Yes. And what I will say is, I'm going to back up. So everyone thinks of a frequency vibration that we occupy as a single state. Like you ping into that frequency vibration and there you are, constant at all times. It's not like that. It's like your frequency vibration is more of a bandwidth, okay? Yeah. So that it occupies. Now, how tired you are or how good you're feeling impacts where you are in that band. Does that make sense? So if I'm really, really exhausted because I haven't been sleeping well, or I'm feeling detoxy or whatever, then the mind chatter will go up, the emotional stuff will happen more, that type of thing. If I'm feeling really good because I've slept more, I'm eating really well, whatever, then of course I'm higher in the range of my frequency vibration, right? So what I would say is, generally speaking, my mind is still. I have, I'm using my mind more as a tool than being enslaved to my mind, if that makes sense. So before, my mind would tell me to do all these things. I was constantly planning, I was spreadsheeting and that type of thing. Now what happens is that my mind is more of my tool. So as you know personally from me, I actually produce a lot of work. And it's because when I'm working, I'm actually extremely focused. I'm not really thinking about anything else. I'm just in it. I'm kind of in the zone that athletes talk about, but I happen to be in the zone of whatever it is I'm doing. And it doesn't really matter if I'm working or if I'm cooking or if I'm, painting. It's kind of the same focus which occupies all of me, which is a really lovely feeling because you kind of can immerse yourself in whatever, because it's so present. So I'd say the quality of it is a much higher resonation. It's much more fulfilling. You can get a lot more done. And you're not as subject to the mind chatter, which is the thing that I feel is more draining. So I guess to answer that question, bliss, I do experience bliss.
There's moments.
There are moments of it.
Yeah,
and
exciting.
Exciting, exactly. And the other thing too is it's not static. Everyone thinks, okay, well, I'm going to achieve whatever, thing that you think you're going to achieve, awakening or whatever you think that you're going to get to. And then all of a sudden you're going to be awakened all the time forever. It's not like that. You experience moments of real extraordinary presence. And then you come back into your regular human existence, right? And then you come back in and you experience it for longer. It's kind of like that. Yeah. So it's not like instant on and instant off. You're human, so you're going to vary it. And the periods of time that you can stay in these moments where you have stillness in your mind or real focus or whatever gets longer and longer and longer. So
very good.
Yeah.
So here's, in these segments, we talk quite a bit about patterns and breaking patterns.
Yeah.
And, so do you feel like you have cleared all of your patterns.
We should ask Chris this.
There should be an asterisk by all these. So, or do deeper patterns still surface as you go deeper into the work?
Yeah. Okay. So this is a really wonderful question because people assume that once they reach a certain point that all their distortion patterns will disappear. It's like, phew, done, check, they're all gone, woo, celebrate, party time, right? It's not really like that. So here's the thing. Until you return and merge into the oneness, you're going to have distortion patterns. So I'm just going to back up. A distortion pattern, it sounds like a negative thing, and we talk about it as if it's negative, yes? It's anything that individuates you or separates you from the oneness or the all that is, okay? So as soon as you become embodied, you have distortion patterns. You have to. That's what creates form. So I'm always going to have distortion patterns. We all will. Okay, until we disembody and return back to the all that is. So you're going to have them forever. They're not necessarily bad. They keep you in density or form. And to answer the second question, do I uncover deeper patterns? Yes. Yes. So again, I'm going to go back to distortions and filters and how they work. Okay, and we addressed this in another segment, but I'm going to repeat it again because I think it's helpful for people. Okay, so between us and our spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length around us, there are sometimes hundreds of distortion patterns. And the distortion patterns, to me, look like the filters on old school cameras. Okay, so they have different, you know what I mean? Like you could put like red or blue or orange in front of the lens and it would change what the picture you took was, right? Well, similarly, distortion patterns are in a sphere around you. They're not just linear, okay? So they're all around you, like in a little sphere. And they have different thicknesses and different opacities, and they have different, so let's just call it that. And what happens is that we have a lot of them, okay? And they tend to appear around certain things more than others. And we have a lot. So like I said, you have some between your physical body and between your spirit body, a sphere at arm's length all around you, and then between the spirit body and pure source, which is all around that. So we have lots of them to clear, lots. And so it doesn't matter how many you remove. What happens is, okay, so it's not like you're going to remove them all. What happens, however...
I'm starting to get a little depressed.
I know. I'm getting there.
It's like, oh my.
I know.
Sounds like the closet is really full.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm speaking for me. Closet was really full. And what I will tell you is, from my experience, is you don't have to remove all of them for your experience to shift, to get better, to become more amazing. You just have to remove enough for your experience to start to change, for you to feel different, for your world to start to shift. You don't have to eradicate all of them to experience that. That is my point. So I know I started down the depressing road, and I get that. And my point simply is you don't have to get rid of them all to experience a shift, a significant upward shift, and even to experience what I would call spherical abundance or spherical luminosity. It doesn't require that you remove all of them. It just requires that you remove enough of them. Yeah.
And I think the folks that are doing work with you and that are listening to this, they become aware of the fact that over time, I'm starting to feel this. Yeah. And it's hard to put words on it, but it's exactly what you said. It takes time. Yeah. Okay.
And for some people, it's really fast. There's some people I work on, and then within a session, they feel totally different. It just depends on you. Yeah.
Okay. So this is we're going to go back a little ways here. Okay. Did you train in healing modalities? And so this is kind of a relationship question between frequency work, what you're focused on now, and other modalities. When it comes to effectiveness and helpfulness, would you consider frequency work maybe the highest level of healing work one can achieve? You know, you've done other work.
Can you repeat the second question, please?
Okay. So what is the relationship between frequency work and other modalities?
Okay, great. Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes, it does help, because I wasn't quite sure what you were saying. Thank you. All right. So I'm going to answer them in sequence. Okay. I think. I have done Reiki. I actually studied that and did the whole course thing. That's the only modality that I've actually...
Huh? Did you do the tapping?
No, I haven't formally. Well, no, I haven't done a course on it. So
Okay,
I have a
okay.
lot of interest in different modalities.
Maybe that's it.
Okay, so I learn about different things
Yeah.
like EFT. I have taken a lot of courses on them. I understand what the modality is. I understand how they work because I'm curious.
Yep.
So I know a lot about different things, but I don't have deep expertise and I haven't been trained in them formally. For example, like traditional Chinese medicine or whatever it is, right? So I have a lot of things that I'm very or like body talk or RPR or whatever. I have things that I've become very curious about and I learn about because I feel like they're helpful to me as tools, but I haven't been trained in them formally, to answer that question.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, and the second was, what is the relationship between frequency work and healing modalities? Okay, I'm going to back up out of this question because there's an underlying assumption in this question that I want to address, that I need to distinguish. Healing, the way we think of as healing currently, is a return of the body or the emotional state or the energetic state to what we consider to be healthy. Okay, I'm saying that in quotes for podcast people. Healthy, all right, or normal. Okay, so right, does that make sense?
Yep.
Usually when you're healing, it's because somehow you were one way before, something has happened to you, you are no longer that way, and you wish to return to that previous state.
Got it.
Right? Usually when we talk about healing, that's typically kind of the paradigm. Yes? Okay. Frequency work is not about that. Okay, frequency work is about a much higher level order. So healing currently usually is focused on the physical, sometimes emotional, mental, and sometimes on the energetic, especially when you get into things like traditional Chinese medicine and so on, when they're using meridians and qi and all that sort of stuff. It's still, however, bioenergy. It is connected to the all that is to some degree, but not all practitioners are doing that. Okay, so that's the traditional, I would say, from my perspective. I'm not saying that's the universal perspective, but when I perceive healing and how people talk about it, that's how they usually talk about it. Frequency work is at a much higher level order. It's not even a goal. Because it's spirit level, it's at spirit level. My goal isn't to heal you, okay? It's not about that. This is about awakening into a higher level order, a remembering of who you are beyond the physical form. Okay, so as you do frequency work and release these distortion patterns, can the physical body shift? Can the emotional and mental body shift to a much better state? Yes, but it's not necessary that a return to the way it was occur. Does that make sense? Because it's a higher level order. So on spirit level, it may be that as a soul or a being, you need to experience whatever this healing quote unquote crisis is to awaken you into a higher level resonating order, to move you into a spirit journey. Does that make sense? That could be the purpose of the healing crisis. And I experienced one myself, so I am aware of this, right? So,
and wouldn't you say that most of the people that come to you are because of that reason? They have experienced something that has triggered them, that there's got to be more, or there's got to be something different, or I need to break whatever it is that I'm going through.
So I would say it's a mix. So some people have a crisis, either like a financial crisis, a healing crisis, a relationship crisis, some kind of crisis that catalyzes them to start to question or examine the way things are. Can something be better in my world? And they start to explore different ways to see, is there a different perspective? And then they stumble upon this, okay? Or they seem to stumble upon it. Some people just hear my voice and they want to work with me. Some people feel like there's something better and there's no crisis that occurs. They're just like, something's missing. What is it? What is it? I'm looking for something. And then they hear me talk and there we go. That's the thing. Does that make sense? So it doesn't have to be a crisis, but that's true. A number of people do come to me for that. So my point is simply that the return from spirit perspective, I'm talking about a much higher perspective now. I'm not talking about the humanness of it, okay? And I'm not saying that there isn't pain and there isn't like suffering that can happen in the physical body, and there can be. I'm not belittling it. The purpose of spirit level is to catalyze awakening. This is what your higher self has asked for. Okay, this is what's caused you to be in front of me. Okay, there's no accident. You're not in front of me, meaning either in a group frequency calibration or a live event or a session. It doesn't matter. Okay, The reason you're in my field and receiving this is because your higher self is like, wait a minute, we gotta wake up. There's something I'm trying to get to, but I don't know what it is, okay? And so that's the thing behind it. Now, as I mentioned, physical ailments can clear up. Different modalities can show up to you that relieve physical stuff. You start to eat better. You take care of your body in a different way. Emotional, mental stuff shifts. Outlooks change. New ideas come in. Yes, all that stuff shifts, but that's not the outcome. And also, I'm not directing this, right? It's like the healing modalities typically are, I've hurt my knee, fix my knee. This is the pain, fix it.
Boom.
Take it back to where it was before, okay?
Yep.
When you come into frequency work, I can't direct it like that. It's not about me.
Yeah.
If it were, then I wouldn't be as effective. Actually, I have to actually completely, Karen, the persona, the human Karen, has to exit really, because it's not. Does that make sense? Like I don't have an agenda. Yeah. It's not okay. I make it really clear. I'm not channeling. Yeah. I'm not a medium. But just in terms of my judgment, Karen, the ego identity, cannot be present. Does that make sense? I'm working from a much higher order. I'm actually following your higher self. So I can't be sitting there judging you, having my own framework of like what I think is right, wrong. It would slow it down. Does that make sense? So there has to be a total surrender on my part to pure source and to the process so that it can be from the highest level order, because I, as a human individual, do not know what is best for you. I don't. Yeah. So I don't. So just to take that was sort of a roundabout answer, but really truly is, so frequency work to me can be about restoring physicality, but it also can be much more than that. It can actually cause you to catalyze into a greater level of awareness, which could have tremendous ramification to you on the physical, mental, emotional realm for the better.
What I'm thinking about is in our Western world, in Western medicine, I came to you with my bad knee.
Yeah.
So I'm going to determine the success of a couple weeks later, how is my knee? And that doesn't really have a lot to do with the work that you're doing, because you're doing it at a much higher level.
Yeah.
And you're talking about frequencies and removing distortions and breaking patterns and
all that stuff.
And so, yes, the knee may respond right away, or 6 months later or a year later.
Yeah.
But you're at a much higher level.
That's right. And it's funny because some people who fixate on the physical pain, they're like, oh, well, it hasn't gone away totally yet. It's a lot better, but my relationships are better. I've got a new job. I've moved into a new house. I'm feeling really good, but my knee isn't totally fixed yet. And so, but it's kind of, it's interesting. And I'm like, okay, but everything else in your life has changed.
Like really?
So it's interesting what we focus on, right? Yeah. Because that's the way healing is presented. Like, take me back to where I was before. And my question is, can you go better?
Or maybe just the other side of that is that, oh my Lord, after the first session my knee was better. I don't need to ever see you again. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you have so much more to offer, with the work. But no, the knee's okay. So I bet you get into a lot of different scenarios.
Yeah.
So okay, here's a question that's very focused. Okay, what is your greatest challenge? Greatest challenge.
My greatest challenge. Okay. My greatest challenge is to have discipline and stillness. Okay, that's my greatest challenge, is to put aside time to do nothing. And I am quickly learning that discipline is required in order for me to serve at the highest level that I can and to be coming from the frequency vibration that is the most resourced, the most inspired, to serve the greatest number of people. So I have learned this, and so now what I'm doing is every few weeks I am taking in my calendar a few days off where I do nothing. And it's actually extremely important, and we've talked about why can you get the episode on can you get more done by being still? I spoke about it, and now taking a page from my own book and doing it more consistently, because it was more sporadic before. So now that's I think my greatest challenge. And what's wonderful is that with this work, I would say that I enjoy those spaces of stillness. Before I used to try and fill them all the time. So the lovely thing is now they can just be empty.
So you just said the word joy. So the follow-up question was, what is your greatest joy?
Yeah. I find the word joy fascinating. some people are very triggered around the word joy. I've noticed that in some people, they don't know what joy is. And here's the thing. Many people project something on the word joy. Like it's got to be this like massive thing where like angels sing and you're in this state of like amazing. I don't know what they, right? It's just like, no, I'm serious. So a lot of people will say, I don't really know what joy is because they have an idea, a mental idea of what joy is. And I'm not belittling it. I'm just saying that I've noticed that. So when you say, what's your greatest joy? My answer to that is like, what would your definition of joy be, right? So to me, my greatest joy is very simple. Honestly, this is going to irritate a lot of people, and I'm aware of this.
Do you mind if I step off? I don't know if I want to be part of it. Okay.
Yeah. So honestly, it's when I'm really super present. Because everything opens in that moment. Wow. Honestly. And that sounds like such a Hallmark card answer, but it's totally true. Because when you're in that state of pure presence, then you can bridge the infinite and the physical. And that is amazing. Now, I don't know if it's joy, but it's freaking amazing. I don't know. So my greatest joy, that's what I would answer to that. Yeah. Wow. And to me, it's funny. When we release our distortion patterns, extreme happiness and pleasurableness and moments of joy happen extremely easy. It really doesn't take very much to amuse me.
Takes very little.
Takes extremely little. Yeah. So I would say that it happens quite often.
Yeah. And would you say, Karen, that like everything else you've talked about has kind of evolved over time?
Yes.
So your definition of joy today is quite different than it was a year ago, 5 years ago.
10 years ago. Very, very different. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Humanity. Mm-hmm. How does working on humanity actually impact you?
Yeah. This is a fantastic question because it's about synergetic ascension. This is the new consciousness coming in. Okay? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's an episode entitled What is Synergetic Ascension? So the wonderful thing about working on humanity through the people that I work on, okay, so what happens is that when I work with people and their distortion patterns are released, it has a ripple effect into the oneness. It happens. And if they are of a high enough order, it actually starts to unbind distortion patterns that are held collectively, which is really fantastic, which means, okay, what that means is that it's easier for other people in the future to release those distortion patterns themselves because it's already been done by someone who's a higher enough vibration, okay? Because they set the stage for it, they set the pathway for it, okay? So to answer that question, what happens is when I work on people, which then have a ripple effect into humanity and into the oneness, what happens is my frequency vibration rises. I am buoyed by that. When I do that, then what happens is I'm at a higher level, which means that when I work on other people and into humanity and the oneness, they are buoyed even higher. So it's this reciprocal spiral, which is really amazing. So everybody's winning because there's no power grab. Like I don't have to oppress you in order for me to rise. In fact, the more I help you, the more my frequency vibration rises up, right? And that's to go back to that original question about healing. If there was the persona of Karen, or there was like a desire on my part for a particular outcome for myself or anyone else, it can't work. Does that make sense? This is really of a higher order. This is about surrender, like for real, not just like because I'm trying to get an outcome, to pure source. If not, it doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Yeah.
I think you probably have answered this last question with that, but just see what your thoughts are. How does your work on humanity impact the oneness?
Yeah.
And so I think you just talked about that.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I'm going to bring it down even to something more granular. When I work on you impact the oneness. Okay? So meaning each individual I work on, whether you're sitting in front of me individually, it does not require an individual session. I mean, just make that extremely clear. You can be in a group frequency calibration, a live event, listening to a recording. It does not matter. As soon as you are in the field of the frequency work and releasing your distortion patterns, what happens is it has a massive positive ripple effect into the oneness. The oneness shifts for the better. So when you do this work for yourself, there's a massive ripple effect into the oneness. And as your frequency vibration rises, you have even more of an impact into the oneness. When I work with some of my clients who do this work very consistently and are very vigilant with their confirmation of the deletion of their pattern, when I work, what I perceive when that happens, literally, almost instantly, the oneness shifts. They shift, the oneness shifts. The oneness shifts, they shift. It's like this reciprocal thing that happens at the same time at that level. It's phenomenal to witness.
Wow.
And at some point, more of you will feel that. You'll be like, whoa, the oneness just changed because that person just changed. That's amazing. So as this new consciousness comes in, we're going to start to perceive more of our relationship between ourselves and the oneness. So it's like, whoa, something just happened in the field. Oh, it's because this person just released this. I can feel it, right? That type of thing will happen. Not right now. It's going to, though, and it's really exciting.
And I can see where that ties to, I know you get excited about the group practices and the mastermind. And so as you have these individuals shifting and, you know, going to higher levels, and then you bring that group together.
Oh, it's
and then
incredible.
It just, that amplifier.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when we do accelerated master classes and the mastermind's really strong, or and the deep dives are incredibly powerful because the group keeps meeting over and over a sequence of time, right? And it's the same mastermind, and they're clearing the distortions together. The amount of momentum that's created that is really intense. And it's really hard to communicate this because it's like, how do you describe something that's non-describable into words that are bound by time and are linear? But anyway, honestly, there are times when I almost can't speak because the oneness is shifting so radically as the mastermind's shifting. I'm shifting. Does that make sense? We're all shifting. I just feel it differently than you guys do. And so it's like, wow, it's like kind of like the oneness is shifting me. So I'm working. So it's all happening almost instantly. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's kind of like, where's my hand? You know, like I don't, like everything's moving in a really kind of awesome way. It sounds scary, but it's not. It's really cool actually. Because everything is being brought up to a higher order very, very fast. Yeah.
You know, I want to say thank you, Karen, for being willing to go deeper into kind of your world. And I think what's so important for all of us as we listen to this is the fact that, you know, we are stepping into the unknown. And so we're kind of, you know, sometimes like, I'm not quite sure about this. Is this safe? You know, is it a good path? Is it... you know, is this where I want to go? So to hear you talk about your personal experiences and what you've seen and what you've felt, and, you know, and the thing is, you're very human.
Oh, totally.
You have emotions.
Yeah.
You have feelings. you do have thoughts.
Oh, totally.
You know, so... because everybody's got kind of their concept of, you know, where's this lead me to?
Yeah.
And so it's kind of comforting to see that, you know,
still human.
we're still human, but we're stepping into this world where we're having these experiences that are just like, wow.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Karen.
Thank you.
Karen, could you help me? I hear so often when I look at your video or your website, GFC. Exactly what is that?
A GFC is a group frequency calibration, which looks a lot like a guided meditation on a particular topic. And what I'm doing is I'm helping you to remove the distortion patterns of that particular topic. And because you're coming together as a mastermind in a group to connect to pure source even more and to clear the distortion patterns of this particular topic, what happens is a tremendous amount of momentum starts to happen because of the energetic of the entire group, and each individual is able to move faster and ascend higher than they could have on their own.
Welcome everyone to the Group Frequency Calibration for Up Close and Personal. The particular theme for this group frequency calibration is something that I call fundamental authenticity. So with this concept, it's to address that often we tend to be different versions of ourselves depending on who we're in front of. So we're different with our mothers, we're different with our children, We're different from our coworkers, our bosses, our clients, our, hobby buddies. Okay, we're different with the different people in our lives. Now, with fundamental authenticity, what happens is we come into more union. So a release from being these different versions of self into more freedom to be the true essence that you are. Okay, and however you express that. So that is the theme of today's group frequency calibration. So first, becoming aware of your body. Noticing the relative position of your hands and your feet. Noticing if they are in the same position, if you've done this before. Noticing if they are at ease, if they're in tension in any way. Good. And now notice what the bottoms of your feet are touching. So if your feet or the soles of your feet are touching a surface, be it fabric or carpet or the floor, or even your own skin, and noticing the texture of that. And if the soles of your feet are touching the air, noticing the air, the temperature of it, the relative humidity of it, whether it is moving. Just noticing what the soles of your feet are touching. Good. And now please become aware of your breath. Noticing the quality of your breath at this moment. Before you change it, should you choose to do that. And as you notice your breath, without judgment, taking this opportunity to deepen your breath now. To allow it to enter not only your chest, but also your belly. Allowing it to become more deep, more at ease. Good. And now becoming aware of your surroundings. So noticing the sound around you other than the sound of my voice, both on your end and on my end. And becoming aware of the smells around you. Either from the space that you're in and or from even an open window. Noticing the smells around you. Good. And now becoming aware of your throat space. And the lower back half of your skull. And as you become aware of these two spaces, let's take a deep breath here together, holding your breath in for a count of 4, and then releasing all the air out of your lungs and holding your breath out for a count of 5. And for those of you with a faster count, keeping your attention on those 2 spots, breathing normally, as we wait for the mastermind to coalesce. So those of you who are new, please note that I'm working on you at the group and the subgroup level, and that I'll be making noises on my end. So you might hear me exhale sharply, or yawn, or sometimes even hum. That's just how I remove the distortion patterns. And more I'm working in silence as I access higher and higher frequencies. So I don't make physical noise in those cases because it lowers the frequency resonance, which doesn't serve you. So just know that if I am not making any noise and you can't hear me, I'm still working on you. Good. So now that the mastermind has coalesced and become coherent, we're going to ask ourselves the following question. How can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And that question again is, how can I become even more aware of my connection only to pure source? And as you ask yourself that question, please imagine, sense, feel, or become aware of the space at the very center of your body. And as you become aware of this space, please notice or imagine and a brilliance that is at its very center, that intensifies because you have your attention on it. And for those of you who've been following this work for a while, you know what to do, so go ahead. And for those of you who are new, becoming even more aware of this brilliance as it intensifies. And as it intensifies, it moves outwards through all of your cells, expanding out through your organs, through your bone structure, out through your flesh and your muscles, radiating further out through the pores of your skin into the space between your physical body and your spirit body, which is a sphere at arm's length all around you. Good. And please really notice or imagine the brilliance within the sphere. And as you're aware of this brilliance, notice that the sphere may begin to vibrate or oscillate or shake from side to side. For some of you, it might even spin. For others, it will remain still, just noticing what happens with the sphere. Good. And now please become aware of the space all around the sphere. And as you become aware of this infinite space, I'm working on spirit level to increase your frequency resonance, irrespective of what level you're at. A, so this session can be the most effective possible, because it's coming from the highest resonating order. And B, because you cannot yet come here on your own. It allows you to know where you're going, to entrain to your future self. Yeah. Pushing us even higher in frequency resonance. Good. Becoming aware now, please, of your hollow of your throat and your xiphoid process, which is right at the base of your sternum. So your sternum is that big, thick bone in the center of your chest where your ribs meet in front of your body. Right at the base of your sternum, if you were to trace your finger along it, you would reach a fleshy point right at the base of it that is tender when you press on it. That is your xiphoid process. So becoming aware of your xiphoid process and the hollow of your throat. Yeah. So the first distortion pattern that we are going to release is it depends on the subgroup you're in. So for a large one, there's a fear that you will not be accepted, worthy, loved, or seen if you don't shift or edit or modify who you are in order to be more pleasing to who you're in front of. Okay. There's another subgroup that we're also working on. That is afraid of being judged if you don't conform in some way to the person that you're with in front of you. Okay, and for a smaller subgroup, it's punished if you're not conforming, either behaviorally or perhaps even in how you think to some degree, with the person who is in front of you. There's another small subgroup here for those of you who have no boundaries. Okay, you don't know who you are. You're everything that everyone wants you to be, but not really who you are. So it changes in the moment. So helping you, in addition to the other two subgroups, to start to have an understanding or feeling of who you are, as opposed to what others want you to be. Bringing your attention now, please, to your solar plexus between your belly button and the base of your sternum. This is the frequency distortion of low self-worth and non-deserving of the free expression of who you truly are. Okay, your fundamental authenticity. So you don't feel worthy of being able to express this, or you're afraid of other people's judgment of it. Okay? So let's release all this. There's a small subgroup of you that is afraid that if you show who you really are, as opposed to who you've been projecting, that people will find out that you're not all that. Okay? I don't know what the all that is, but whatever that is. Mm-hmm. Good. Yep. Bringing your attention, please, to your xiphoid process and about an inch beneath it, or it's 2.5 centimeters for those in metric. A tiny little space here. Mm-hmm. This is, two frequency distortions that are intertwining. One is a judgment of self, okay, and the other is lack of trust in yourself, in your higher self, that is. Okay, so helping you with both of these things. If you're judging yourself, It's hard to be in fundamental authenticity. Likewise for lack of trust in self, in your higher self. Good. Bring your attention now to your xiphoid process and 3 inches or about 7 centimeters directly beneath it towards your belly button. Clearing out, resetting, and integrating your pain body. Because your pain body has a memory of who you were before this session. So wiping it clean or resetting it so you don't bump into the memory that it has of you before the frequency work was done. Makes it easier and faster to integrate. We do this for just a couple more seconds. Good. This brings us to the end of this session. I look forward to working with you on the next GFC. These GFCs help people release distortion patterns. It's my sincere hope that you benefit profoundly from this series, which is why I spend so much of my personal resources creating these as my gift to the world. If a GFC topic resonates with you, often more work that can be provided in this one GFC is needed to really clear or loosen deeply held distortion patterns in areas that are sticky. Because these patterns are like layers of an onion, usually there are multiple layers to individual topics. Depending on how much of a challenge this topic is for you, it may make sense for you to go deeper than what this session allows. If you feel this is the case for you, please visit sphericalluminosity.com for more targeted support.